What do you think it would be like for everyone you talk to think that you're crazy? This is the predicament that Teddy Daniels deals with in the movie Shutter Island. This is a very psychologically intense movie as it is set in a psych ward on, you guessed it, Shutter Island. We'll begin by watching the trailer to the movie and then continue with an analysis of the psychological elements of the film.
Give you a briefing about the institution?
All I know is it's a mental hospital.
For the criminally insane.
Gentlemen, welcome to Shutter Island. You are hereby required to surrender your firearms.
We are duly appointed federal marshals.
But during your stay, you will obey protocol. Is that understood? We take only the most dangerous and damaged patients, ones no other hospital can manage.
These are all violent offenders, right? They've hurt people, murdered them in some cases.
In almost all cases, yes. We try to provide them with a measure of calm.
Personally, Doctor, I'd have to say screw their sense of calm. So this prisoner escapes in the last 24 hours.
We don't know how she got out of her room. It's as if she evaporated straight through the walls.
We haven't heard the truth once yet, but no one will talk. It's like they're scared of something.
It's all down, all the lines, even radio.
Whatever the hell's going on here, it's bad. We need to ask you some questions, okay?
Do you know what fear does to the mind? Corrodes it, rusts it.
This is a game. You're a rat in a maze. Who did this to you?
Going somewhere?
I've built something valuable here. I'm not going to give up without a fight.
What if while you were looking into them, they were looking into you? Now they have us both here now.
Let me see your face.
Let me see your damn face now! Don't move, don't move!
Wouldn't you agree? When you see a monster, you must stop it.
First, we'll discuss the portrayal of the psych wards on Shutter Island. It is important that we consider the context when discussing this topic, as this movie was set in the 1950s when psychological treatment was in its first stages. There were 3 psych wards used in this movie. Psych Ward A housed the men, Psych Ward B the women, and Psych Ward C the criminal patients. Although Psych Wards A and B were rarely seen in the film, Psych Ward C was clearly less than accurate. In this ward, patients were essentially put in a prison with dark cages and little to no resources. This would not be the case in the 1950s, when many psych wards looked more like a classroom full of beds than a prison cell. Altogether, the facilities on Shutter Island were not very accurate. Now, we'll talk about the treatment administered on Shutter Island. This was one of the more accurate aspects of the movie, as it correctly portrayed the treatments of the 1950s. For example, throughout the film, Dr. Cowley and Dr. Naring experience conflict representing the differing beliefs of the humanistic and experimental psychologists of this time. These were the old and new schools of thought for this time period. The experimental treatments used in the movie were the electroconvulsive therapy and the surgical lobotomies, which were both common in the 50s. Another treatment administered was the drug Thorazine, and this was used to treat mental disorders. This was another hit, as this drug was introduced in 1954. As a whole, the treatments in this film were very spot on. Now we can attempt to diagnose Teddy Daniels with a psychological illness. There are 3 potential diagnoses: delusional disorder, schizophrenia, and post-traumatic stress disorder. It is very unlikely that he has schizophrenia because he is fully functioning within his world of delusions. He may have some level of post-traumatic stress disorder because he does have periodic flashbacks of what is obviously an internment camp. Delusional disorder is the most likely diagnosis because he does not seem to have any outright hallucinations, but is clearly delusional. He shows symptoms of both grandiose and persecutory type delusional disorder, with his belief in being a U.S. Marshal and suspecting that everyone on the island is conspiring against him. After observing the possible psychological diagnosis and their symptoms, it is most likely that Teddy has delusional disorder with some ties to post-traumatic stress disorder. Lastly, there was one scene in the film that stood out for being very psychologically involved. This was the cave scene where Teddy Daniels finds Rachel Solando, a missing patient that supposedly murdered her own children. We will now watch this scene before discussing the psychology involved.
No, I
And
never...
if I say I'm not crazy? Well, that hardly helps, does it? There's a Kafka's genius of it. People tell the world you're crazy. And all your protests to the contrary just confirm you're insane. And anything you do is called part of that insanity. Reasonable protests or denial. Valid fears. Paranoia.
Survival instincts are defensive.
The big ideas covered were a Rosenhan-like effect, the process of feeling pain, and lobotomies. Solano clearly describes the Rosenhan effect when discussing how one who is labeled crazy cannot escape that label. She also explains part of the gate control theory while telling Daniels that pain is felt in the brain, not in the sensory organs. She also describes a process of a lobotomy, even including the use of an ice pick. Altogether, I found this scene to be one of the most interesting of the film. Overall, the director Martin Scorsese was successful in portraying the undeveloped state of psychological treatment in the 1950s. Many of the surgeries performed around this time would be considered appalling in relation to today's treatments. The minimal errors that were made regarding the accuracy of this movie were surely made up for by the thought-provoking psychological concepts that emerged. I will leave you with a clip of Teddy Daniels asking you to decide his final diagnosis.
So what's our next move? You tell me. Gotta get off this rock, Chuck. Get back to the mainland. Whatever the hell's going on here, it's bad. Don't worry about it. They're not gonna catch us.
That's right, we're too smart for them.
Yeah, we are, aren't we? You know, this place makes me wonder.
Yeah, what's that, boss?
Which would be worse? To live as a monster? Or to die as a good man?
Teddy?